The CCP was just like, Americans love watching videos of themselves dancing.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
lure them in with that. Then let's take some people doing minimal effort, doing some front-facing musings. Let's electrify them at random and just
yeah.
be like, you come on here, you spend more time on here, you might be famous. And then between so basically it narrows the algorithm. They really reward you for doing the same thing on there so that the
Hmm.
people who follow you know that, like, I'm expecting that. I'm expecting that. Oh, and here's a video being like, Osama bin Laden had some good ideas. Boop, 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 boop. Hi.
Hey, welcome to the
How are you?
podcast.
Look at your setup. Isn't that smart?
Yeah, it took a little
Oh my
bit.
god.
I like your setup. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's
Well,
very feels
whatever.
very California.
Tell me about it, right? Okay, let me just turn this up. Do you want me to record my own track?
No, no, it's okay. I have
Yeah.
this will split it into two different tracks. So I'll have mine and yours on two different audio tracks.
Okay, great. Wow, that's really
Yeah.
improved since my days of doing this in the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, Zoom's
Yeah.
really built upon what they were when they started early on. Who knew that we would all be able to do video calls so easily this whole
It's really
time?
crazy. Like when I was a kid, did you ever watch the Jetsons?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Because I remember watching that as a kid and they had like all their calls were video calls. And I was just like, whoa, I wonder when we're going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And basically it was just like, it just took the pandemic to get everyone to
You could
actually,
do it. Like I
oh
remember
yeah,
like
well, FaceTime.
MSN, but MSN back in MSN days, you could
Sure.
turn on a little webcam. If you had a webcam, people were like, "Whoa, like
Yeah.
rich parents over here. You got a webcam."
Yeah, but it just took everyone out of necessity, which is,
Yeah, yeah.
necessity is the mother of invention, So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
where I caught right
So,
on.
but yeah, no, it's oh God. Where are you? You're in Ottawa?
I'm in Ottawa now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. What part of the city?
Like Nepean. It's not
That's
really
where my
Ottawa.
yeah, that's where my grandmother, my nana lives. So I spent a lot of time
It
there
makes
when I
sense.
was
It feels
a
like a
kid.
lot of nanas in this area.
Yeah.
I
She
like it
cu-
though.
what the fuck? Curry Crescent, something like that. I don't know. Whatever. But right around the corner from the Nepean Public Library, if that. Yeah. And
No
behind
idea.
the CJOH, is that what the network affiliate was there? I don't know, something like that.
Maybe. Maybe on
Hmm.
Marival.
Something like that. Yes. Yes, that
Yeah,
rings a bell. That rings a bell. So,
yeah,
yeah, spent a lot of time there as a kid.
yeah. Cool.
Summers and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway,
Nice. Well,
yeah, is there
thanks for
anything
doing
that
the
I should
show.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. Oh, it's a delight. No, I was just telling my bestie and my roomie Heidi Brander. I don't know if you know who she is. She
Yeah.
was like head writer of 22 Minutes for a lot of years.
Oh,
Anyway,
cool.
whatever. Very more of like a comedy writer. And I was just like, she's like, who's the podcast with? I'm like, it's with this guy from Brockville, a former or a fellow Brockvillian.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Little no
yeah,
history is part of me. Yeah, every time that I remember when I first started doing comedy when I was like in Brockville, wanting to like I had tried it in college in like 2011 and then moved back to Brockville for a little bit and was like just going to Ottawa, going to Kingston because they had the Absolute there, going to Montreal, trying to
yeah.
do comedy. And then I was working at the YMCA and you would come in and I'm like, oh shit, you were like the example for me of someone who like got
Aw,
out, went to Toronto, and
yes,
like you were like doing stuff. So it was
yeah.
easier because before that, when I saw comedians on TV, I just thought you had to be like a movie star to like do that. You know what I mean? Like you had to be like Robin
It,
Williams or like
yeah.
and it's funny, I heard the same thing when I had Kyle Brownrigg on. He thought the exact same way of like thought you had to be a big movie star to be a comedian. And I'm like, here's this
Mm.
person that's from
And no, the
Brockville.
fuck you do not. Yeah.
No, but like video on
Increasingly, less
trial.
and less so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
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 sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Back then it
Yeah.
like meant something. You know what I mean? When you got
It
like
sure
on TV. Now it's
it
like,
did.
how
Yeah.
many
Oh,
views do you have?
I certainly thought so, let me tell you. Oh my God. But
Yeah.
so my God now. Ooh, yeah,
Yeah.
everything's different. Everything's on its fucking head. So,
Yeah, yeah. So that's
oh,
interesting though to be in a position where you've seen that full kind of changing of the
yeah.
guard of, if you will,
Ooh,
of like,
several times. Yeah.
yeah. I can imagine.
Mhm.
So when you were starting in comedy, did you have like what got you into comedy? Did you have someone where you're like, oh, I like that style of comedy and that got you interested into it or
The person who got me into comedy, her name is it was Katie Flagg. I don't know what she goes by anymore. At BCI, I'm going to
oh.
withhold the year because it would shock you.
Okay.
But I was in grade 12, so I was 17, and she was running this like noon hour coffee house, it was called, in the drama room at BCI. Did you go to BCI or TIS?
I went to BCI.
Did you? Okay,
Yeah,
great. So you
yeah.
know the drama room, you know
Yeah, yeah.
that drama room. And so it was just a lunch hour thing called the coffee house. There was no coffee served at it. This is before kids were drinking coffee, and now I think 8-year-olds bring coffee into class,
Yeah,
which
and
is
in
great.
their
But
Stanley mugs.
yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine from high school when I was back there in June, and I was just because her daughters are now like one of them is starting junior high at that whatever, and just about like them now. Like she wants to go to TIS because there's a Starbucks across from it, and that's the big thing. It's just like the like literally, it's like that's why. So that they can go and get these, venti size things. And I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
even think we were allowed to have water bottles, like plastic bottles of water. That was really novel. Anyway,
Yeah.
so there was no coffee served at it being the point. And she just, Katie was just like, I think you'd be good at stand up. I'm going to sign you up to do stand up. And I was like, well, I guess I have to do it now. Sorry for these sirens, but I'm in the
That's
city of
okay.
angels and a lot
It's
of tumult
constantly.
going on down here. Constant. Oh my God. Yeah. I just saw someone get shot. No, no, I live in Silver Lake. It's very,
You're like, it's once a
chill, but
week. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, well, but yeah, I mean, we can talk about what the future holds for the old US of A
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
after November 5th. But
Mhm.
but yeah, and so she just signed me up to do it. I wrote some I used to watch stand up on like because we lived in the on a subdivision in the on the outside of the city limits,
Mhm.
Centennial North Augusta, if that means anything.
Yep.
We couldn't get cable, so we had a satellite dish. So I did get American networks, and so we got Comedy Central back in its sort of like heyday. And so I used to just sit there on Sunday afternoons and just watch 6 half hours, six people's half hours, and
Wow.
and and so this is back when I could actually watch comedy without wanting to kill myself. And so I would just absorb that. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. And so I took half of my act would have been ripped right from Kathy Griffin's
I love that.
special at the
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
Half of
Just
my
something,
act,
right?
something. And then another half was like me, sounding stuff out. I mean, a lot of comics, I think when they start, especially now, they do think this is like singing. So they think that they're doing covers. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, that's not how. Like, I don't know. Do you watch Drag Race?
Yeah, actually, because
Yeah.
my girlfriend was like, "You have to watch this." Never saw
Yeah.
any Drag Race before, and it's one of those things where there's a bunch of memes about it now on TikTok of like
Yeah.
all of these reality shows where the boyfriend's always like reluctant, like, what are you
Yeah.
watching?" And then he's like fully invested. That was
Yeah.
me because I was like, "This is insane what these people are doing.
Yeah.
They're funny." They have to walk in high heels, number one, can't dance and do splits and fucking flips and
Yeah.
shit. And I'm like, holy
Yeah.
fuck. Then they have to like make the outfit themselves. I'm like, the array of skill set that you would have to have
Yeah.
just to be on that show blows my mind.
Jills of all trade completely. It really, and Drag Race, conversely, when it aired, I remember watching it concurrently in the first season back in 2009. Because I was resourceful and knew how to
Yeah,
pirate
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And no, it took out America's Next Top Model and Project Runway, both of which were still on the air after that, but like it combined those things plus American Idol, plus, branding, plus all this
Yeah.
stuff. And it really, because they need to do everything. And it was all based on things that RuPaul had encountered in his life and career. And in any event, Gottmik, who was a queen on a recent All Stars
Mhm.
episode, when they did the roast challenge, Gottmik was just verbatim doing Nikki Glaser roast jokes. And
Oh,
then when Gottmik was called out on this online, Gottmik was who I just met recently. Actually, it was just a show that I did
really?
here. Oh yeah, oh that's the one thing about LA. You can do a podunk show, and it's like, oh, the entire drag race winners are in the front
Yeah,
row.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, so you better bring your A game. But so but Gottmik was just like, what? Like that's what you do. It's just like covering a song. And people
Oh
don't get that. In any
man.
event,
Yeah, yeah.
so I did that, and I can remember just going really well. And like I was someone I find that there are two sort of trajectory paths in stand
Mhm.
up. You have people whose first time or first couple of times go really well. And so they're like, oh, this is easy and I'm going to be great at it. Or you have people who do disastrously, but they're, masochists, I guess, who
Oh my
like
God.
there are so many people who I've seen who I'm just like, what makes you want to try this again? That was just,
I had
you
one of
were
those.
just humiliated.
I
I
had
do
one of
not
those
get.
interactions recently, and it was bad, Andrew. It was bad. I felt so bad for the guy.
Well,
I
especially
felt
in Ottawa,
so bad. Well, he got
but
taken off the stage. Like
yeah,
time got cut short and taken off the stage, and I was just
yeah.
like, "Ooh!" I was like, "That is bad." Like I had to pull him aside and be like, "Hey, man, if you ever want to do this again, everything you just did, don't ever do that again."
Yeah, yeah,
Like
me
just
too.
just do the opposite of everything you just did because that was
Yeah.
terrible, and no one's gonna tell him that that was terrible.
No one's going to tell him it's terrible. And I'm sure that now with the proliferation of, starts with a mat, ends with a rife, just people think it's such a different thing. They
Yeah,
think
yeah,
like so they don't understand the sort of rules of the trade. Number one rule is stick to your fucking
yeah,
time,
yeah,
and that's the biggest thing
yeah.
for any
And
comic.
don't read off a
But
paper. Like
yeah,
that blows my mind. Come prepared. It's your material. You're supposed to know it. Why are you reading out of a book?
girl, my
Fuck
God,
off
you
with
don't even
that.
know. You don't
Like,
even know. That is, oh my God. I
I
know it
hate it.
happens.
Yeah.
No, there are some very, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, but
Anyway,
so I know what you mean. Like you're looking at like people that are doing these Comedy Central half hours and you're molding yourself sort of after them. Not entirely, but like watching them and learning and then applying it your own way. And now people are being exposed to an array of comedians and they think like that's comedy. And you're like, not
yeah,
necessarily. It is for
and
them and it's working for them, but that doesn't mean
yeah,
that's your thing.
with the diversification, for lack of a better term, of voices in comedy, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, I suppose. But here specifically, I can see exactly who's imitating who. Just like
Mm,
like there are a lot of gay guys who kind of think that they're being Chelsea Peretti. And I'm like, that doesn't work. No,
interesting.
no, you're not
Yeah,
going to be a
yeah,
gay
yeah.
Chelsea Peretti. Like, no, she can do that because she's her. You can't. I understand that that speaks to you, but it's not
Yeah,
working
yeah.
for you, bitch. Like, you're not going to be. You just it's so, and with just gay guys, I mean, I could do an entire different hour
Yeah.
long fucking TED talk about that. Because when I got in, it's funny. Did you see that Netflix documentary Outstanding, the queer comedy revolution? It's basically
No.
just like this hour and a half documentary about queer comics and stuff like that. Well, I know a bunch of people who were involved in it, despite the fact that
Okay.
my picture was not in the fucking credits. And let me tell you, that was a kick
Uh,
in the fucking box. And
hey, I
I've
had
let
a
that be
Netflix
known.
show take my fucking imagery too and not pay me a cent. And I was
Really?
so yeah, there's a
What happened?
if you watch the documentary of MH370, the missing Malaysian flight, I had done a YouTube video for this channel that I used to work for called Inform Overload. It was like celebrity news
Mm,
gossip and sort of like those
hmm.
type of stories. But everyone was searching for this missing Malaysia flight, so we were doing nonstop stories about this Malaysian flight. And anytime I saw someone saying something online, I would say, "This is what this person is saying. This is what this witness said. Here's what we think happened. Whatever." Years later, they do a documentary on this Malaysian flight, and they set it up in the slimiest way. They go, the internet was rife with conspiracy theorists. And then they play me, my dumbass, talking like, here's what I think happened, da 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 da.
Hmm.
And then they cut it off. They like take the clip out of context and then no credit, not an even
Oh
email or
well,
anything.
not even a little fucking your handle
Nothing.
in like size
Not even
zero
Johnny Rogers
writing.
conspiracy theorist. If that's what you're gonna
Oh,
label me, at least
yeah.
credit me. Like, what the
Well,
fuck?
Netflix is rich for a reason, like
Oh God.
these
But
people pinch their pennies. But
this
I
documentary,
remember
yeah.
asking the Sharon Houston, who was a producer on it, because she was asking me if I had seen it and everything. I was like, oh yeah, yeah. Oh, there were a few people I didn't know about. And for instance, the very first queer comic, I forget what her name is now, which really escapes me, but it was lesbian back in the 60s. Phyllis Diller had some showcase and she put her on and she was an out lesbian. And she's the first, queer
Ellen
comedian, like stand-up
DeGeneres. No.
comedian. No, it wasn't a no, no, no. And Ellen was not in that. Like there were a
Okay.
few, you could tell the holdouts
Yeah.
who were like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do that. And it was like, it's pretty conspicuous that you had terms that
Yeah.
they were
Didn't want to
not fair to
meet.
me.
Yeah.
But well, I was saying Mario Cantone. Do you know Mario Cantone?
No.
Very loud Italian guy. He a Sex and the City and the companion reboot, and just like that, he plays Anthony, uh, Charlotte's sort of gay BFF. Whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, he. I remember seeing him on The View when I was much younger. That would be the first gay guy resembling doing stand-up comedy that I'd ever seen. Not that I
Hmm.
like modeled myself after him, but at
Yeah.
the time, like I always think like, no, I just kind of came roaring on. I was not emulating anyone, and I can
Mm.
so see when people are emulating people here. It's just so like the anyway.
It
But so
must be
now when you
exhausting.
have the TikTok comedians,
Yeah.
the clip thing, we're gonna see where it goes. You can just see people now, their entire construction method is like they had something pop, and now they just get up there and they are just firing little 30-second snippets into the ether, hoping something gets
Hmm.
a pop. And then if they do
Hmm.
put that on there out of context, it looks like, oh, wow, they're really good. No, I'm just like, no, that was unwatchable. Oh no, they just out of context had like a little pop. Because I see some of them here. I'm like,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so now you need to work on doing a cohesive 10-minute set, then after that a 20-minute set, then after that a 45-minute set, then an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? So
Uh-huh.
it's really, that has really changed things for the worse. Yeah. But
And it becomes like an ego and response thing too. Like I totally get the incentive structure of you have this video of you doing maybe like marginally well in one part of your set. And you know that if you post it online, it's going to get attention because of how it's perceived. That's sort of the whole idea of social media. That's why I never let anyone posting anything online make me feel jealous or whatever, because I'm like, it's just their highlight reel. Like their life could be in complete shambles at the
and it
moment,
is,
and
it
they're
is, it
and it
is.
is,
It
and they're
guaranteed
like,
is.
here's me in this rented car or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Even people who you would perceive as killing it, and we can
Yeah.
talk sort of off mic. We are recording now, right?
Yeah,
Like
oh
we're
yeah,
like
yeah.
live.
We're
Okay.
live, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I better
Hope
mind
so.
my P's and Q's because I
Okay.
fucking name names,
I can
and
just bleep it out. Write a
but no, I
little
mean, even
timestamp.
people that you would perceive as like success stories are in
Hmm.
complete shambles right now. There is just such a halt to any sort of trajectory and momentum at this point. It's insane. It's actually
Yeah.
insane. So yeah.
And that's why also like, emulating people must get so exhausting too, because if it's not working anymore and you're still like stuck in this, people can even become like caricatures of themselves. Like they can do a thing that gets like maybe a bit of a pop, a way of doing something or a style of doing something. Like if Dane Cook, for example, just kept trying to be this like high energy whatever, you'd never get any like some
Yeah, that's
substance
the
from
word.
him, you'd never
Hmm.
get any of that from him in his older years, which you might get if he decides to write that. But if he feels like he has to stay within this wacky all over the place character, you never get to that point in your creativity. And you can apply that to anyone, right? Like if
I
you
mean,
if you don't evolve.
I could have a very uncharitable take on that, but I won't. I will say what it might apply to is just, you definitely seen it. The algorithm is trained,
Yeah.
and this is another the algorithm, the perniciousness of all of that, and the TikTok is, oh God, this will probably get flagged, whatever platform you put it into. But
Yeah. YouTube's
so
gonna take us
good luck
down.
putting this on fucking TikTok. It will not be shown. But I mean, it is a Chinese propaganda tool. It is a network. It's going to
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
it is. It's
Oh no,
like,
I know,
no,
I
the
know.
the
Yeah,
Chinese,
yeah.
the CCP was just like, Americans love watching videos of themselves dancing.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
lure them in with that. Then let's take some people doing minimal effort, doing some front-facing musings. Let's electrify them at random and just be
Yeah.
like, you come on here, you spend more time on here, you might be famous. And then so basically it narrows the algorithm. They really reward you for doing the same thing on there, so that the
Hmm.
people who follow you know that, like, I'm expecting that. I'm expecting that. Oh, and here's a video being like, Osama bin Laden had some good ideas. Boop, 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 boop,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
boop, boop, boop,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's some of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
members of
They'll
my
just
camp. I think
feed
that we
in.
I
Oh my
think
God.
that I think that democracy isn't, and this is happening. You're seeing it in real fucking time right now.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so but to the more sort of sweet aspect of this is, there have been people who are just they're doing the same thing because they've been
Mm.
rewarded for that, and it's
Yeah.
it's Pavlovian. But the other thing that I would say is, for the the people who strictly operate
Hmm.
via a sort of clip compositional model, I just don't know how you get your 10,000 hours because you can need it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, that's why I've
I,
supplemented it with podcasting because I
yeah,
think it's insane. It would be insane for me to just start throwing my bits that I have out there and I haven't even recorded an hour special. It's like, no, those should be like in the locker getting worked on until
they should.
they're completely
Yeah.
ready to be like
Yeah.
put out. Like I've put
I
out like
don't put
one or
up,
two,
yeah,
but I keep it very, very minimal. I had
no,
like yeah.
any stand-up clips that I have disseminated, it's all worn material that I've worked
Hmm.
on, and I still won't do that. I still won't go because this is what it is. It's basically you see people going and putting things that are open mic bits on the off chance that they get a pop. I mean, you in Ottawa would have the benefit of stage time.
Mm.
So that is something that, in Toronto isn't even as easy to come by. In
Yeah.
the City of fucking Angels, baby, guess how many fucking sets I've got this month right now in the books?
How many?
One on the 11th.
I believe
I've
it.
had three shows
I
canceled this
believe
month.
it.
Something's going on down
Yeah.
here, but so I've started to do fucking videos, which are just kind of specific
Yeah.
things that I can do with a sort of like just specific things that I would never do on stage, to be perfectly honest,
Yeah.
because
You're
they're too
creating a new
specific.
opportunity for
They
yourself. Yeah.
wouldn't, well, no, but I mean, just like it's a numbers game right now. Like like, okay, if I can, crack 100K, which is hilarious. That is a hilarious number that I'm never going to see.
If you
But
can get to
I'm like,
10K
if
though,
I can,
there's a path to 100K is what I've
sure, sure,
realized.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. And then it's just like, okay, let me because just everything is predated by that
Yeah.
model now, where it's just like numbers like at the Comedy Store, you're not getting on stage if you have under 40K. Like that's the new sort of baseline there. It's insane. But I'm just like, if I do and I do, then bitch, like fucking get out of my way. Like I will fucking
Hmm.
like it's just insane. Like you will do sets, you will slay. I will slay.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. The merit of ostensibly the reason we're all here, which is to see live comedy.
Yeah.
Succeeding doing that means nothing. It's just,
It's all for
it's yeah.
you. That's the thing is when you realize that it's all just like it like I spent because I started doing comedy when I was 19. So I always
Mhm.
thought that every set I was gonna do was like that was gonna be there's gonna be somebody in the crowd and that's when you're gonna pop off
Sometimes it
and
would. Prior to this clip
yeah,
culture,
yeah,
honey,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes it
Yeah.
would. Listen, I had moments where the right person was there. The first, the so far the only televised stand-up, well, televised if you want to call it that, like on this it's like a popular YouTube channel
Okay, that's
called Hey
basically
Queen,
television
which
now.
the producer saw me and I was the last. He was just like, I love that joke. I want that on here. I'm like, okay, and
Yeah, there you
that
go.
did used to happen. That did used to
Yeah.
happen, and it's farther and fewer
It's
between
not
now.
happening
Now,
anymore.
now it's just well, now it's online. You need to meet people
Yeah.
where they are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the thing that I will tell you is I've been around long enough that I can tell you the thing about this business is anything can happen, and anything truly does happen. You can have years where you are left for dead and think this is it, and then
Mhm.
a year and a half later, it's just you're living in a completely different world,
Oh yeah. I
and
always
it
think about
just
that. Where were you a
yeah.
year before? Now imagine a year from now. Like,
Mhm.
can you imagine a year prior to this being where you are currently in this moment? If the answer is no, then you're probably not going to be able to imagine where you're going to be within the next year. And that's literally how quickly, like, there is a great photo a year ago of Mayor Eric Adams and P. Diddy holding the key to the city of New York, doing a
Yeah.
heart together. And now they're both going to jail.
Yeah, well, Eric Adams, will see. I have a
I don't
feeling that
know.
he's
I
gonna
feel like
evade
they've got some shit
incarceration,
on
but
him.
yeah, Diddy got, that's for
Diddy
sure.
got. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But it's just
and
like,
there
goddamn,
are
a
some,
lot could change in
yeah,
a year.
a lot. Well, the thing that, on a more positive aspect
Sure,
that I will
yeah.
tell you is, well, you look at Kamala. I mean,
Yeah.
her approval was so underwater. People are like, what does she even
She
fucking
had
do? She's not.
1% in the
Yeah,
presidential debates.
something
Like,
like that, and it turned overnight, and it just like one
don't you
story
think
that I'll
that's
tell
sus
you.
though?
What do you mean?
Don't you think it's sus that you go in 2020 from 1% approval rating, like people voting for you, and dropping
No,
out
and I'm
before she even gets to her home state to now she's got a like a 50,
oh
like it's a 50-50.
yeah.
It's all going to be up to swing states
Uh,
at this point, right?
a friend of mine back in Toronto, who now is pretty high up in the Ford administration, which, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that, whatever. But he,
Sure, yeah.
before that, he was like a sort of political lobbyist in Canada, and so
Uh-huh.
much as you can be one, there's really not the money for that. And I do remember when she dropped out talking to him, I'm just like, so was she like promised the VP slot for Biden? He's like,
Yeah.
money, honey. No, you just mismanage your money. It's all about money. When you see someone suspend their campaign, it's because they ran out of money. It's as simple as that. So, and she did not manage that very well. Now she learned from her fucking mistakes. Like that's the big
Mhm.
thing with her is she has not let hubristic ego get in the way. She's like, I fucked that up. So how do we make that right? And when I was just
She
that
goes,
debate was so great because she did not.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like Biden was just gonna be like, folks, my record is gonna speak for itself, and it's like,
It's so
bitch. And
she's fighting an uphill battle though. She is like salmon swimming
well,
upstream because
you
she's the incumbent. And that is the hardest position to fight from.
well,
If
that's not how she's
people no,
perceived.
she's doing it all
Yeah.
off of vibes. You know what I mean? Like she's like, I'm the joy
Well,
candidate. I'm this. Like I get it. I get why she's trying to
yeah.
be like, you guys have to pick me because look at the other option. Like, but also you're
Well,
like, give me
mhm.
more. Give me
when
more
the
than, you
when the
know,
debate happened between Trump and Biden, which I did not watch live because I had a bad feeling about it. I just thought that it would really,
it was bad,
I
dude.
wouldn't
It
I
was
wouldn't
bad.
be. It was, oh, I've seen clips and I was like, that was disqualifying. I'm sorry.
They were both
You
horrible. They were
yeah.
both horrible.
Well, I mean, Trump is a ghoul. Trump
Yeah,
is in the
yeah.
line of the most evil men who have ever drawn breath. But and I mean, we can talk about that too. Like, what I will tell you right now is any Canadian that I know down here,
Yeah.
if Trump is reelected,
Hmm.
um, if people duly and fairly elect this man, knowing everything
Yeah.
they know,
Yeah.
we are all the fuck out of here. Like, we're all getting our affairs in order, and everyone's moving back. And it's because this will become like, did you see that movie Civil War
No, it's
with
not.
Kirsten Dunst?
But
No,
I have
that's
a hard time believing though
imminently.
is like he's already been there for 4 years and then he left. Like he didn't enact the military to keep him there. I don't
Yeah,
think he
because
should
there were
win, but I
he
also
was
don't
not.
believe this
Yeah,
like
2016.
fantasy
I can
that
I
it's going
can
to be civil
easily
war.
I can easily explain to you how this is why that didn't happen. 2016, he did not expect to win.
For sure. That's
Everyone
for
expected
sure.
Hillary to win. He was not prepared. He
Yeah,
had no
yeah,
transition team to speak of.
yeah.
It was all performative because he
Yeah.
wasn't expecting this. So he went in, and there were still a lot of government bureaucrats. There were a lot of people who hewed to the Constitution.
Hmm.
Project 2025, I'm sure you've heard about this.
Yeah,
Project
yeah, yeah,
2025
yeah.
is an extensive plan. They
Yeah.
have vetted people down to the mail clerk at the
Yeah.
GSA. And day one, like so much of the office of the American president is predicated on the founding fathers, of course,
Hmm.
being like, oh, well, only great men of character will ever run for this office in the first place. And surely if they are not, they'll be
Yeah.
disavowed by the electorate. Well, wrong and fucking wrong. Like, and so it's all just the sort of our norms, but like wink,
Yeah,
wink,
yeah.
that's what we need to handshake agreement. Now, as it turns out, there can be a demagogue run who has a point of reference. Like, I'm someone who is very convinced that there will never be another Trump because there will never be someone who had the point of reference that he
No,
had.
there's
You
nobody
know,
that's as big as
like
a magnet as him because he had the longest, he had been in
he was in
entertainment
the
and
bloodstream.
media
Yeah,
before any of these journalists that were questioning
yeah,
him, before they were even born. He had
yeah,
been in media, learning about media. He was a master of getting
yeah.
screen time without ever having to pay for it.
He was just once he was elected, I would
Yeah.
just be rewatching, Home Alone 2. He's in it. Sex and
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
It's just like, well,
He was
Samantha was at this
everywhere.
bar and there was Donald Trump. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Rappers
was
were
just,
saying they wanted to be
yeah,
him. Like, yeah.
he
Yeah.
was
It
a
was
point. And so
crazy.
just no one will ever, because of our splintered
But
media environment now, which is why
there's
the
a bit of
business fucking
conspiracy theorist
sucks.
in me though. I don't want to cut you off, but there's a bit of a conspiracy theorist
Really?
in me
You
that's
don't
like
say. A Gen Z white male,
I'm not Gen Z,
heterosexual
I'm
male who has
millennial.
a, oh, well, anyway.
I was just
Okay.
gonna say, what about like do you not think that's also weird though that he can go from this beloved person by everyone, like he went to one of Hillary Clinton's like events and stuff and like supported her and gave her money, to then he becomes a competitor. They did the same thing if you remember back when it was Obama and Mitt Romney. They called that milk toast Mitt Romney, like he's Hitler, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that, he's gonna take away your rights. Maybe he was gonna do those things, but it's like they run the exact same playbook against anyone that's
No, it's
opposite to them
I,
instead of just
I
being
would
like cordial with each other, you know? Let Trump
Well,
like be an asshole and
this is
stand against it.
politics now.
Yeah.
When the grab him by the pussy tape, sorry if that just got you an explicit rating, but when
Bleep
that
it. Bleep
dropped,
it.
yeah, when that dropped, it was
Yeah.
pretty common knowledge. This is
Yeah.
just when I sort of started to get attuned to politics. So I really paid attention to the Overton window. Do you know
Yeah.
that term, the Overton
Yeah. Yeah.
window?
Yeah.
It's just the sliding things just so that the more it goes this way, the more is acceptable.
Hmm.
Um, so when that happened, it was like, well, this is it. This is it. And apparently Russia gave up on, they thought when he had insulted the Gold Star families, the Gold Star veteran, they were like, well, no, he's not our guy anymore. And it turned out no one gave a fuck. No one took
Okay.
it seriously. And then, though, it works both ways because you can really see Republicans flailing right now, trying to get a hit on Harrison Wells. Like, so they took to pages out of their playbook. For instance,
Hmm.
back in 2004, which I was not engaged with politics at this point, but they did something on John Kerry's military service saying that,
Hmm.
oh, he actually is embellishing it. And that was deadly. So they
Yeah.
tried
Yeah.
that on Tim Waltz now, and it was like, turns out no one gives a fuck. We're just like, but they're
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
disappointed.
He just was
And
literally like,
so
I misspoke. And they were like,
no,
okay,
yeah,
that's over.
and people are just like, whatever. Well, I fucking hate this fucking Vance goon, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and Trump.
Yeah.
So, and people should be talking about
Vance
the
is a
fact
weird
that
one
JD,
too. They made a
he is,
Hollywood movie about his life before he got picked.
yeah,
Like there
which
was
was
like
terrible. It was
big,
unwatchable.
but there
Hillbilly
was like big
Elegy.
stars in it. You're like, whoa, like they
There were
were.
Glenn Close was nominated for an
Yeah.
Oscar. I
This
know.
is what I'm talking
Mm,
about. Like you're like, whoa. Like
I know.
he was like in Hollywood. Like he had like,
Not really.
not really, but you know
There
what I mean?
is,
Like more than most people.
yeah.
Like
Well,
to have a
there
movie made
is
about
a
your life.
big, because I think that the movie was sort of panned after that. There is a sort of theory that you can really trace all these aspirant autocrats into failures in Hollywood.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Steve
yeah.
Bannon is someone who was like a producer. I think that he was one of the producers of Seinfeld. Don't quote me on that, but
I wouldn't,
I think
yeah,
so.
I for sure.
And then when they're sort of shut out of the mainstream, then they, and Vance is like that. I mean, you look at his statements, he doesn't he what's really interesting about Vance is all these little autocrats, they come from like nothing. They're all basically, for all intents and purposes, street urchins that work their way up, and they don't have any sort of
Yeah.
allegiance to any sort of ideology. They just do,
It's the
they
perfect
because
politician.
they
Yeah.
because they're misanthropes, because they come from nothing. They're like they are raised as scum, so they're like, oh, fuck you, like fuck you, humanity. Putin same way, and so that's this interesting little trajectory that they have in common. And Vance is very dangerous. Like when that movie Civil War with Kirsten Dunst and
Hmm.
Kaylee Spaney in it, Nick Offerman plays this president. Everyone was like, oh, so
He's
he's like the
great.
Trumps. I'm like, no, he's not. He's the Vance. He's what would happen if Trump dies first year in office, which is a huge likelihood. Like,
I mean, he's been
come on now.
like attempted assassination twice.
I
Like you
know.
tell me they're not going to stop trying. Even
No.
the last guy put out a note that said, I want people to keep trying to do this and I'll give them 100K if they're successful. There was
He
like a
doesn't have
letter.
100K.
No, he doesn't, but that's not
That
going to not
second,
incentivize someone.
that second fucking assassination. Well, the first one too. That the conspiracy theorist in me comes
Okay,
out
go
about that
on.
one
Go
because I was
on.
just like that fucking photo. I
There
was
was
like,
too much wrong. There was too much.
but
It was
and
weird.
then they didn't. They were
There was
yeah.
people
There's a
yelling,
lot
there's a
of
guy on the roof. He's walking around with a
lot of
rangefinder.
holes in that story. But the guy on the fucking golf course, number one, Trump insists on doing this. That is like they
Hmm.
can't snuff out, like they can't sweep the area.
Yeah,
And he's
he's
like,
like,
I'm gonna
stop
do
going
some
into an
holes
open.
now. Well, fuck you. The guy did not get fucking close to him. Like people
Yeah,
show up on
he
like
was way
Obama's
ahead.
fucking
Yeah, yeah,
doors
yeah.
with like pipe bombs on them. Like
Yeah.
there have
Paul
been multiple
Pelosi.
assassination. Hello, but like they can joke about that. You just the thing that I cannot
Crazy.
stand. I'm just a very like anti-hypocrisy person, where it's just like any criticism of Trump is incitement, but he can say whatever he wants, including
Yeah,
incitement.
no,
No, no, no,
everybody
no.
needs to be
So,
held accountable for
but
their words.
but he does have this leash to do these things, and people just sort of brush it off. That I think he's one and done with that. I
Hmm.
like when you look at when they run a ticket of Kamala against Vance, she wins by 20 points.
For
So
sure.
anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
but he anyway. Um, this is all to say that if they do get back in office, I'm getting my affairs in order. Yeah, like we're all like, well, we bring 2 suitcases back at Christmas,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
we just
yeah.
get ready to leave on a moment's notice because just there's going to be pushback when Roe was overturned down here. there were all these sites of protests, and
Hmm.
Jodie Sweetin, who was Stephanie Tanner on the classic sitcom Full House, I'm not sure if you know it, you're probably
Yes,
too
yeah,
young.
okay.
Okay, great.
I remember.
She led one of them, and they shut down the 10, I believe, which is a big highway here. It would be
Wow.
like the Queensway in Ottawa, and and the Queensway.
The Queensway.
Anyway, and so
So
God, but
Canadian.
yeah, it's so Canadian, and you're because you're in Brockville, and for anyone listening in Brockville, I remember when I was in high school, if we would take that little sliver of 401 between the two exits,
Yeah.
like what was it, Stewart Boulevard to North Augusta,
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
would always call like, let's take the Queensway today. Because you're basically just going exit to an exit, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
Brockville. Yeah. In any event. So but so she leads this group of protesters down there, and
Hmm.
the SWAT team, they shut down a highway, so this is big. LA's a
Oh,
big
yeah,
driving
yeah,
city,
yeah.
it's like beep beep, come on now. And so she's like, don't worry, I'll be the face of this. She thinks because she's a celebrity she's gonna like stop the SWAT team. She goes up to them, and they literally take her by the fucking hair, and they skid her across the
Oh.
highway, and she's just like, what the fuck? And I'm like, they are not going to
They
like,
don't give a fuck about you. Yeah,
no. And
yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
just like, and when I wasn't here during the George Floyd protests,
My
but I
God.
heard it was unlivable. The police state presence, what I was just
Oh,
like I
yeah.
would still, because I do have an American phone SIM card, I would get the emergency alerts, and it would be like curfew 1 p.m. get in or else martial fucking law. I'm not sticking around to see how that goes. So
No, that's
yeah,
fucking
but we're
crazy.
hopeful. We're hopeful that democracy lives for another few years.
Oh my
So we're
God.
hopeful. November 5th, but I forget where I was going. Oh yeah, just things can
Yeah.
change. So just the vibe shift on her, and just the culture can be ready for something that they don't know how to articulate, but they just are. And I do have a theory that you could predict Kamala's success by Barbie last summer.
Oh,
I was
bye,
like,
Barbie.
that was something that I think predicted,
Yeah, yeah,
forecasted
yeah.
the fact that people were ready to lean in to
Hmm.
a female candidate
Good
for the highest office in the
response.
world. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
do. I'm working on a video about that. Anyway, but so yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
Well, to switch off topics too, I the one word for the podcast, I don't want to forget that.
Mhm.
What was your one word for the episode?
I'll tell you this. I was rewatching the movie Doubt, starring Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Amy Adams, who was also in that awful hillbilly fucking elegy movie.
Yeah. Nice.
And so it's about this like nun who accuses a priest of sexually abusing, a minority student
Okay.
at like a Catholic school or something like that. And she looks out the window one day and she says, "The wind is so peripatetic today." And that's my word, peripatetic.
Peripatetic.
Because do you know what it
What?
means?
No, what does peripatetic mean?
It means a flurry of activity localized in one area,
Oh,
and then it migrates. Yeah, so it's just kind of like a peripatetic wind would be like, shoo, and now it's like really, it's like little tiny little
little
those little like
gusts of
whirling
wind.
little gusts of wind, and it's like there's a lot of frenzy somewhere, and then it stops and it goes somewhere
Ah.
else. And so I think that that is very apropos for the state of the industry right now, because in the last 4 years, the goalposts have moved
Hmm.
so much. The metrics, it is just it's completely different. It's a completely different world universe
Yeah.
that we're all living in. So
But I mean, like, kudos to you for just realizing that and then deciding how am I going to evolve with it instead of being completely, well, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to keep doing what I normally do. Because so many people just do
mm,
that and they just keep thinking like, I got to get on late night. It's like, what?
yeah, that's done. The
That's
the late
done.
night, and that's too bad,
Yeah, get
like,
on a
but
big podcast within your niche.
I mean, even that has changed now. It used to be like here at the store, you wanted to get in the store because Rogan would be hanging
Mm,
out there and
sure,
he
yeah.
might see you, and literally he'd platform you, and then boom,
Which is
and
so
then I guess
nuts.
the closest thing to late night that has emerged in the last couple of years is the don't tell tapings. That's
Yeah.
been something that is relatively broken now, but I would even say stand-up clips are kind of done now. Just people have been there and they have seen that. And it's just,
Hmm.
what's really funny is Aidan O'Loughlin. Do you know Aidan, a comic and
No, it
writer
sounds
from
familiar
Toronto?
though. Yeah.
When JFL went bust, and honey, it did. Like when people are like, oh, I think it might be coming back, I'm like, it's really not. Anyway, but so,
You're like, there's no
but
way. There's no business model.
well, yeah. I mean, I have thoughts about that too. Speculations about what went on. I think that earlier this year, a lot of not-for-profit festivals, and I'm using big
Mm,
fucking quotations right now on the
if you're
not-for-profit
listening,
because
yeah.
there are some people who did very well at the top of those pyramids. But a lot of those things you saw really struggle. So it looked like the government, like daddy cut allowances.
Wow.
Like earlier this year in JFL was just like, well, we can't even pay interest with this. Anyway, I think that they've been taken over by this company in Montreal called like a Quebecois company called
Hmm.
Comedy Ha, and they basically have just taken over their socials. Who knows? Anything's possible, but I don't know as if it will be
As
what it
big as it
was.
once
And
was, yeah.
yeah, but and just this breaking ground or like this launching pad for whatever. But I remember Aiden saying when we were talking about this, he's like, what are we supposed to do now? Just go viral? Is going viral the new faces? And I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really
yeah.
okay. Well, and that's easier fucking said than done. And as someone who is in the content game now and
Hmm.
whatever, where I am seeing marginal momentum, marginal, it's very clear that like people's follow vacancies, people are more selective with that now, and
Hmm.
as they should be, I guess. And there was a window of time where people were smashing that subscribe button,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're not anymore. But it's just there's so much noise, and you've just got to think at some point that bubble has got to bust, and people have got to source out quality because holy shit, but so that to that end, the stand-up clips when you would see
Hmm.
people doing just this like verbal diarrhea, like letting go verbal loose stools basically, and just getting views by virtue of the fact that people were watching anything, that's not happening anymore.
Yeah,
And
nobody's
that's
just like flipping through their feed. It all becomes like behavioral habits, right? Like if
well, and just because people were just so intent on putting out volume, both in terms of volume and
yeah, yeah,
amount,
yeah.
people have just realized now, like this is if they
Yeah.
basically see someone in front of a mic now, it's just kind of like no skip.
You're
So
like,
because
ah,
you ruin it for everyone. So anyway,
no, I believe
anyway,
that. I believe that. So
but yeah,
yeah, so you have to
the late night thing. There's no, yeah,
that's
yeah.
not happening.
Anyway,
Yeah. Some people are like, oh,
there
I gotta
used
get
to.
on a TV show. You're like, I don't even know if
Oh
that would
yeah,
do anything.
before Conan, and I know people who have been on fucking hits, like capital H hits, like that jury duty show and stuff like that,
Oh
thinking like,
shit.
okay, well, I've leveled up now. No, there's I don't know what's going to happen, but like when I think to this year about like the breakout stars, like Jules LeBron, like the very demure, very cutesy, very,
Yeah, yeah.
that,
So
and
just
then
out of nowhere.
out of nowhere, and like, now she's got a thing.
The
And
Hawk Tua girl.
I was just about to say that one who literally
It's
drinking
crazy.
on Nashville's version of the Byword Markets to make it Ottawa. And someone just comes up and says, do you have any
She's
like sex
more
tricks? And she's like, I would
famous.
spit on a dick. And now
Now she's
she's
more
like,
famous than the guy that had the show.
which must, oh, that
Oh,
was,
that would drive me
I'll bet you,
crazy.
I bet it drives him crazy because I don't even know who the fuck that is. I'm just like, he
Who
had a
is that
show. Who's
guy?
he?
Yeah,
No, but
some guy,
instead, like
some man on the street. Yeah, yeah.
this girl who literally,
Oh,
I'm just like, she talked about spitting on a dick, and now
yeah.
she's got the fourth biggest most listened to podcast, Talk to Up, which is actually
That's
a very funny name. But
she is
I
funny, and
just,
that's the thing. Is like
is
she at
she?
least, yeah, she like is like she's what's like small town charming. Where if you went to a small town and you met her and she was working at the local store, you'd be like, this girl's a hoot.
Well, I don't find anyone from a small town charming. So I don't, yeah,
Not
no,
even
I
a little
just,
blonde
but
girl. Yeah, yeah. But I think
that's,
I think social media has become exactly like going into a casino. You're just pulling that lever, hoping that you get a hit. And sometimes you go bust, and sometimes you get a little bit of traction,
but, well, I
and
think
maybe
the
one time you'll hit the
bust,
jackpot.
but because there is so much noise, there is
Yeah.
so much garbage, weird, just New York Magazine. I was just reading did their cover one of their cover stories on like we are drowning in slop, and it's so true. It's just there is so much noise, and I to an extent there always has been. Like the more things
Mhm.
change, the more they stay the same, I suppose. I guess it's about finding your niche. The unfortunate thing seems to be if you really want your niche, that seems to be alt right. And so
It works for some
like
people.
there's robust market for that. Well, the thing that is crazy is,
Yeah.
do you heard about the tenant media? group,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
actually
yeah.
run out of
Paid
Canada,
by
and they had,
Russians.
yeah, they were getting. I all the only name that
It
I know
wasn't
from
even
that
that
is
much money though. It was like
yes,
$10 million. Like if the Russian government was paying me, I'd
they
want
were.
$100 million. Are you kidding me? You know how
Well,
rich they
they were
are?
making. Yeah, well, tell their people that. Tell their people who are literally cannibalizing their
Oh
fucking
yeah,
children. But
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what? That's your problem, Russia.
Crazy.
Anyway, Russia's really they. I'm sorry, they really are the enemy. But anyway,
Oh,
so
Red
yeah, like
Scare.
they really are the fucking
Oh
enemy.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
insane.
The best was Tucker Carlson
That
going
said, I
there.
would take $100,000 to make a video.
Sure,
That's how
yeah.
much they were getting paid. They were getting paid, and they didn't even question it. Tim Pool and those other fucking mouth breathers, they
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah.
question. I was like, that is like legacy. Like Walter Cronkite didn't make that amount of money, and they just
No.
weren't questioning. They were like,
No,
"Well,
no.
my videos, like, they're worth that." Oh no, but so there is like my point being about that is Russia
Hmm.
in 2016 set up all these accounts that people would follow, but they were on Russian soil. They can't do that anymore because there's so much fucking noise. So they needed to pay
Yeah.
off these people who already had organic followings, and so that's
That's
there's
why
so
you have
much
to question
noise. And
everything you hear because you're like,
oh,
who's paying you?
yeah,
If where is the money coming from that's making you say this? Because I don't trust that this is genuinely what you believe in. And especially that Lauren Chen who kept saying she apparently I never watched her show, but apparently she would constantly say that she would criticize people for taking money as she's taking $10 million for her company to dole out to
they
all these
don't.
influencers.
The
The
the hypocrisy
hypocrisy.
is shameless, and that's the point.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah, yeah.
point. If you can like, part of me wishes all the time that I was a sociopath, that I just didn't have
You'd
any
be so much
hangups about
richer.
that. Well, I mean, I have conversations with people down here all the time
Yeah.
about just, what if, and it's like, would you ever go alt right? I'm like, well, I'm
That
not
would
sure
be
there's a
the
robust.
funniest character ever
Yeah.
for you.
Oh, I did. I used to do
Gay
this. Well,
MAGA?
I used to do this character when I did Laugh Sabbath. I used to do a recurring show called Shock Jocks, and I used to play a character called Andrew Johnston. And so I was like a gay shock jock. I didn't like do stuff
Yeah,
that stereotypical gay guy said. And anyway, whatever. And so I used to do that as a
that's
character. It was
great.
sort of based on, I'll tell you off mic who and the actual person that
Oh,
was based
okay.
on, a Canadian. Anyway,
Nice.
anyway, fuck it. I'll tell you off
We
mic. I
do
think it,
gay.
oh,
Yeah,
because whatever. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but like JJ
sure.
Lieber listening to
Oh,
these
okay.
things.
Yeah, JJ
And
Lieber is
so,
so shock jock
yeah,
gay.
and I hope that wherever you are, JJ, I hope
Yeah.
you found your peace.
Uh,
Love you, girl. But anyway,
that's
but
so
so,
funny.
yeah, not a bad guy, and he's got an interesting story. In any event, but yeah, like I was just like, I don't know, I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't. I quite frankly have too many friends of like color
Hmm.
who I care about to do that.
Have
Like
them on
I
the
couldn't.
show.
Yeah.
That
Oh, right. Yeah. God. Yeah.
would make
Looking
it
for my
even
Candace
funnier.
Owens.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
God. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, everyone's looking for an angle, and that seems to be where there is. And well, another thing that
Hmm.
another theory that I have that I don't think I've ever voiced online before. So you're getting an exclusive. It's
Wow.
just
I
the
need a
only
breaking
reason there's
news.
the only reason that there are like women in the conservative media sphere is because that's the last place that they could be hot. Like that's the last place that they could be the hot girl. And
Thought you were
I've
gonna
seen
say
it
because
time
the
and
men allowed them.
no, well, I mean that too, but no, it's like the last
Um,
place that they can go in, and because you have all these fucking incels who are like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it just that's why like
I was just gonna say, I was like, nah, nah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is a chimp in Ann Coulter drag. She is one of the most reprehensibly looking women on earth,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she got really upset about Laura Loomer, this like ghoul hanging around Trump. And I was like, it's not because she's like, she needs to distance himself from her because she is really problematic. And I'm like,
yeah,
she's closer to him, that
yeah,
she's getting more of like the male attention that you desire than she, or, like, that's all it
yeah.
is.
It's the pot
And
calling
I
the kettle
mean,
black. Yeah.
well, but it's true. And it's just, I have like been around long enough now where I have seen people's ideologies
Hmm.
because they see that there is a market.
Oh yeah, yeah,
to be
yeah.
perfectly
When
honest.
you see someone
And
tap into a niche, you go, okay, I see what you're doing there. Like that
sure,
it
yeah.
would be so easy, Andrew, for me to just come on here and like nonstop, like conservative values, like Andrew Tate. Like this podcast is sponsored by like American Pills that grow your dick or whatever the fuck they have like as their sponsors. You know what I
Snake
mean?
oil,
Drink
yeah.
this snake oil, like just constantly feed people crap. And for whatever reason, people like eat up these caricatures, but it's like those hosts don't actually believe the shit they're telling you. They're
No.
saying this stuff because they know that you're like, oh God, China's gonna do what? Oh God, like what are we doing like in Ukraine? Like, oh God, like because they
Well,
don't know. They're too busy with their day-to-day lives to give a shit about what's happening in the world. So they
on
depend on these caricatures to like tell them.
yeah, and I just I can't sit here in earnest and say that a part of me doesn't get it. Like just someone's gonna pay you, take the money. Especially at this point. I would have been different like 15 years ago,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
when I started, you know. But although 15 years ago, I'm just like, I'm sure that my comedy was way more problematic. Oh my God. It was a different time, different permission structures. That's
Sure,
the
yeah,
big thing
yeah.
that do you know Catherine Ryan?
No, I know of her.
You know of her, yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
her and I started together. She is, household name in the UK now, biggest
Nice.
female
It's
comic over
crazy.
there. And oh, I know, yeah. And I remember when she moved, telling her, "I think you're making a huge mistake. I think you should stay in Canada." So never listen to me about never take
Uh,
career advice from me. But um, uh, where was I going with? Oh, just I produce her podcast, and one of the big things, a common refrain on there is just saying, she constantly has to remind younger listeners and fans of hers, just it was a different time. I came up in a different set of expectation structure and permission structure, and it's
mhm.
very true. Like that's another thing that I've seen. My God, like overnight, you could say one thing and then you couldn't, and then it was an
Right.
issue. It just really,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
won't say
think
the
though,
word, but
I
yeah.
think though it made comedy better in the sense that one, it felt more dangerous now because now there was stuff that people didn't want you to say. And then two, you had to get craftier or maybe smarter with how you would say something. So, like, if you wanted to say a word that would make people go, huh, you had to do it in a smart way. You couldn't just like, yes, you could say the edge lord like thing uprose out of that also. But I think for the comedians that were actually good at comedy, they found a way to navigate this political correctness and still
I mean, I
be
don't think
good,
it's,
you know?
it wasn't political correctness. It was consequence culture. It wasn't cancel
Mm,
culture. It wasn't it was just, there was a new standard by which, okay, you want to say that? You can fucking say that, baby. But there are consequences. There are
hmm.
angles to everything in comedy. Like if you are remotely competent comedian, you can find a fucking angle on anything.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it's not
yeah.
like, whoa, we can't say this anymore. You just, someone can be thoughtful and whatever about anything. And a
Yeah,
lot of people do it very well. And I know a lot of, but it's also what the audience wants. And,
true.
I don't know if I've ever committed this to podcasting before, but I remember years ago, 15 years ago, probably 2009, I was in Kitchener, the Kitchener Yuck Yucks, RIP. And I was hosting for a comic named Donnie Coy, who I believe just died last year,
Ooh.
which I will see you in hell, cunt, but I will have some fun before I'm there. And when I tell you the story, you'll
Donnie,
understand
what'd
why
you
I feel
do?
this way. Oh, so I was hosting, and now, as a rule, kind of a thumb on the road, I just really wouldn't talk about my sexuality. Obviously, I wasn't limiting my mannerisms. Those who knew, but
Mm,
you're kind of straight until proven otherwise, when
sure.
you're in a comedy, whatever. Just people think it's theater. I don't know. And so I wasn't, talking about like whatever. I was just doing standard rigmarole host shit. Who's got a birthday? Who's celebrating something? Whatever.
Yeah.
And I forget the middle's name at this point. I don't think he does comedy anymore and whatever. But so he had gone on, and I go on to introduce Donnie, who is headlining, and I give him a very hero's welcome. I think that he started out with the company, something like that, with Yuck Yucks, whatever. Quite a fall from grace. But because he was like an old drunk asshole,
Yeah,
whatever. Anyway,
yeah.
but I give him a hero's welcome. He comes on, he starts flitting all over the stage, like like in reference to me and says something like, "Oh, I don't want to like this microphone. I'm going to get AIDS off of it now." I remember those were two things that he did, and I just people were, yucking it up as they do in Kitchener, which is a fucking basically Nazi descendant colony. Anyway, no, it's true. Like it's a lot of fucking conservative Germans who sort of
Crazy.
settled there.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
there are some quilted blankets with swastikas in the fucking more than a few in the
Grandma's
Kitchener
attic. Yeah,
region.
yeah.
Let me tell you. Sorry, Ben Stagger. But anyway, so
Not Ben
I know
Steiger.
he's just very
He's
civically
like the
proud of
mayor of Waterloo.
he
Yeah, yeah.
is. And you know what? Shots fired, Ben. But so
Ben,
anyway,
you
I
need to write a
remember,
diss track
yeah,
right now.
yeah, right. Anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah, bitch. Oh, yeah. Bring it, bring it. But so I can remember being at the back of the room and just looking at people laughing about like this vile fucking homophobic shit that he was
Yeah,
doing after
yeah.
I had not done anything to like invite that at all, like
Mm,
spoken about my sexuality. And I just remember this guy, Dave Sonis, that's what his name was. Middle. He was just on his flip phone at the time. I remember texting someone in T9 input, and he just went like, "Yeah, yeah, shitty," but he wouldn't do it if they didn't laugh. And I always think that. I'm always like, they wouldn't do it if people
yeah,
didn't laugh. I always tell that to like younger comics here. I'm just like, there is still a fucking market of people who are going to laugh at that. And as
yeah.
human beings, I mean, I think that we are very hardwired to other each other. But that is just, I don't know.
No,
But so
that's
that's
facts. Yeah, yeah.
that is
Wow.
facts. And yeah, so
Now, there's one last question that I always ask all my guests, and I want you to think of yourself at 15 years old. So, the reason
mm,
why I say that is because it's easier, I find, to put yourself in your own shoes of who you were at that time, because the phone rings and it's you now on the other end, and you get to give your 15-year-old self a piece of advice. What do you say?
learn to code.
And then be
Invest
fun.
in Netflix. Oh God. Move to the States way sooner. Like do whatever you can. I do think about that. I remember there was a juncture in time where I was doing a class at Humber College right out of I graduated from Queen's University and I went to Humber for a postgrad in TV writing and production. I remember guy who wrote on Law and Order was one of our visiting professors, and he was
Wow.
like, like he read my stuff, and he's like, "Get out of this country immediately. Get out, get out." I was like, "Oh, that's so nice." And he's like, "No, get out. Do whatever you need to do to get out." And he was
Yeah.
right. He
Wow.
was right because I really, I think that my life
Yeah.
would have been very, very different. I think that my potential at that point would have been much better realized. But specifically to my 15-year-old self, I'd say like go to the gym because I was really fat.
Oh.
I was a fat closeted kid in Brockville, Ontario. Like
Yeah, what are you gonna
how
do?
well do you think that fucking
Yeah,
went?
yeah.
So
Oh God.
but yeah, no, that oh God, myself at 15, those were the days, halcyon days. But no, I would say, yeah, I should have done whatever I could have to have moved earlier because I do look at people who would erstwhile be my contemporaries in the
Mm.
business now because that's a
Hmm.
big thing. It's just like one thing that didn't really compute to me before I moved down here is that like I really vibe with this person, whatever, like this comic. I'm
Yeah.
never going to be friends with them because I don't have that passage of time with them. Like
Ah.
conversely, it's just like, I haven't seen Catherine Ryan in fucking 8 years, but we're still very friendly
Yeah.
because we came up together, and so you have that passage, the passage of time, and the people that I started in Toronto with too. I'm still quite.
Yeah.
You fall right back into the same rhythms, but there are just people here who I'm like, I'm just never going to be in the pocket there because
Yeah.
we didn't start together, and that was the thing that anyway. So, but
I think that's okay though. Like I always say that like I remember there was always people that wanted to be like friends with a certain group of people. And I had to just think like personally for myself even, oh, it would be cool to be friends with, those people at such and such, whatever. But I'm like, no, at the same time, it'd be so much better to be close friends with the people that you came up with. And then later on, when one of you or all of you start succeeding in what you're doing, you have that old school camaraderie instead of trying to reach for a different friend group where you're not part of that origin story. It's much harder to have that same level of like, we remember
Yeah.
when we were slugging it out, and now look at
Yeah,
us.
and there's a level of I mean, to be perfectly fucking honest, you'll need them to employ you.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
that's a big thing. Like you are going if they are in a position to employ you, they're going to go with someone who they have that bond with. But you know, the thing that I might just leave you and anyone listening with is an anecdote that was told to me by Darren Rose. He went over to Edinburgh for the Fringe years ago, and like this is before sort of diversity became a cardinal thing, whatever. So if you were a
Mhm.
competent white man, which Darren more than is, he had a one man show, and so if you were like competent straight white guy, you were going to be cause celeb. You're going to be, a toast of the town. So he gets on this, and Darren, I'm sorry if you're listening to this and I'm misremembering it, but whatever. I've told many people this story, so
He's like,
this is what
hey,
the
that was
story is
Jerry
now.
D.
So yeah, God, no, no, fuck, no. Anyway, but so anyway, so I remember he does a best of the fest show over there with like seven other guys who had hit Fringe shows. And
Mhm.
because she's over there and she's a name, not because she has a good show, Jennifer Coolidge at the
Oh,
time. So
okay.
let's say this is like 2010,
Hmm.
2011, something like that. She's on there too, just 'cause she's a name and they need a woman. Now she does not have a good show. She's in a real career slump at this point. This is well after American Pie, well after Legally Blonde, everything like that. She's in her 40s, maybe 50s, and she whatever. And she has like a sensibility. She came up in the groundlings here, so they all have sort of a warped sensibility. But it just if you're a name and you can stand on stage, they're gonna book you to do a stand-up show regardless of the quality. She does that. It's bombing all week, but she's on that show. She goes on there and she bombs so hard, he told me. He was like, she
Wow.
bombed so hard that after she came off stage, none of us could look at her in the eye.
Oh,
And he wasn't saying this like as a flex. It was just like it's a thing, when you see someone when you're on a lineup and they bomb
yeah.
so hard, you're just kind of like, you know. And it's just how we are. That's our
Yeah,
nature.
yeah.
And if you were to tell her a decade later, White Lotus happens, and now she is like canon, it
Hmm.
just it's the LA is showing in me now, but it's because the astrology, but it just the
No.
universe has fucking cycles and the stars
Yeah.
align.
Yeah.
And life, God willing, if you're lucky, is long. And so anything can happen and anything does. And it comes out of nowhere.
It
You
literally
cannot
does.
anticipate it. So that's what
That's
I
the
would say is just stick around to find out, and I'll try and take my own fucking advice. Because let me tell you, it gets hard. It gets very difficult, very difficult.
I want to write a book about that, about taking your own advice, about like the advice that people give to other people. It's like, hey, you should also look at the advice you're giving other people and realizing it might be a projection of your own life. Like the things you're noticing in some people, it's like you could
Yeah.
probably also use that same advice.
Well, it's really interesting. I was just having this conversation. Everyone in LA is just trying to talk themselves off of a ledge right now, just
Yeah,
because
yeah,
work has dried up, the streamers really tighten their belts, whatever they've contracting. And it was just so funny. I was just talking so fatalistically about myself, and then she goes on to talk about her sort of, self doubt and everything. And I just find myself like being like, well, no, no, that doesn't apply to you because I'm like, I need to take some of my own fucking advice. We both need
yeah.
to take our own advice because it's just so different when you're giving it to someone else from
Yes.
from your own sort of perch, being like, well, no, this is where the opportunities lied with you, and so
Hmm. Yeah,
anyway,
it's hard to see your
but
own potential, right?
it is, but
Um,
it just the stars align, and I've seen a lot of right people at the right place in the right time for no fucking reason. I've seen a lot of that Journey, the lyric from "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey. Some will win, some will lose, some born to sing the blues,
yeah.
baby. So it's true.
Well, if you want to go follow Andrew, go to, is it Mandrew Bronston?
Yes, I was like, what
Okay,
the hell
great,
is
great.
happening? You just started screen sharing. And yes, there's my pin post, my new album, Pomp and Circumcised.
When does is that out already? Purchase streaming
Yeah, it was
everywhere.
like
Okay.
out August 26th, something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
look at
yeah.
Tyler Morrison in the
Congrats on the
comments.
circumcision.
Yeah, 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 right. I'm
That's
just
a
like,
great. I
well,
just noticed that. I just took that in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go listen to Pomp and Circumcised, Andrew's album, and go follow him on YouTube. Is there anywhere else that you want
Yes.
people to check out?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Johnston, 1999 on TikTok, but like if Harris gets into office, TikTok is done. So sorry, honey. No, but it's true. It's true, and it should be, because
Yeah.
basically they've now made an ultimatum being like, it would just need to be sold, and the Chinese government is not interested in selling it, because then they would need to disclose their algorithms, and they don't want
Yep.
to do that because they were programming propaganda. So, but another
And
fucking video
listening.
service. Yeah, well, it's fine, whatever. I'm like, have at it. You want to see me jerk off?
Yeah.
You don't
You
need to
want to
ask,
listen to me do that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you want to, yeah. But yeah, I'm just like not concerned about that. It's
Uh,
they would need to be forthcoming with the algorithms,
yeah.
and they don't want to do that. So TikTok will be done, and something else will come along. There will be a new video fucking thing. But am I heartbroken at people who have robust followings for looking into their fucking phones and, farting
Yeah.
out of their fucking mouths? No, I'm not.
Time to get a job at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thanks so
Mhm.
much for coming on the show, man. I really
Thank you.
appreciate
It's so
it.
good to see you. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me. And yay,
of course.
Brockville. Two of
Yes.
us.
We got a Brockville episode done. We're doing it.
Yeah,
All right. Hope you have a great rest of your night.
you too.
Bye. You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.